Hello everyone, this is Tim with Paintball Tek. Got a rebuild video for you guys. This is a original Palmers full-size rock regulator. These were designed for use on autocockers, for use specifically with autocockers on CO2. That's why this original design is so much larger than the newer style micro rocks like this. I'll show you why in a moment. So, to do the rebuild on these are actually one of the simplest regulators to work on the market. There's only one O-ring inside and one seal. Everything else is held together with sealants and Loctite. So, to break this down and get everything out, use a 3/16 Allen key on the front of the reg here. You'll remove the adjustment screw if you have one, otherwise it'll be a thumb knob, rock knob. Just take that out. Now, the front of this cap is slotted. Some of them do not have slots, and I'll have another video showing how to get those out. But for this one, use a flat tool or a nickel or a dime or a quarter, something, to unscrew this cap. It was actually designed for use with a nickel. Cap. Once the cap's out, inside here you'll find the push plate, just a little flat disc, your mainspring, and then inside further you'll find the main piston. Usually I like to use a long forceps like this to pull this out. You can reach in and grab it and pull. Otherwise, if you don't have something like that, sometimes you can just get them out by whacking them on the table a couple times. Something soft like a neoprene mat or a plastic tech mat, something like that. And there's the main piston O-ring there. Now, the rest of the regulator is basically just this tube, your back wall here, and then you have the reg head assembly underneath this fitting. Usually for rebuilds on these, that's about where you have to stop. It's this O-ring that'll go bad, causing a leak out of this bleed hole here. The reg seats very, very rarely ever go bad, but I will show you how to get those out if you need to. So, on the original rocks, this section here, this fitting is Loctited into this section here, and then this back cap is Loctited into the body. The back section here that houses the reg seat and the spring and the piston should never come out of this body. It's set, from the factory and Loctited in place, and it should never move. This, however, is Loctited into that part, and you can break that free usually with a little heat, or sometimes it'll just break free if you use a wrench to unscrew it. Once you get that fitting out, inside you'll find a spring, a small brass piston, and your reg seat. So that all goes like that. Now, like I said, these reg seats very rarely go bad. This one looks perfectly fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that back together. Now for reassembly, if you do take this off, I suggest putting it back together with Loctite, like you should, like it says, from factory. So, instead of using red or blue, I'm going to use a thread sealant, Loctite 545. So, I'm going to drop the seat and the piston and the spring. Make sure that they are seated properly inside the housing. Have to fit down inside the little hole. And then apply your Loctite. Now this being 545, it's not a thread locker, it's just a thread sealant. So once it's tightened down, there's my wrench. Need a 7/16 wrench, that's what the size is. You can just tighten it down kind of hand tight. Thing I found is you can wrap the body with a towel to, you know, grab that barb so it's not stabbing you in the hand when you're tightening everything down. Now, this will lock the threads to some extent, but it's mostly to seal the air path. Leave that sealant kind of dry around the outside, and once it's, you know, set for a little while, you can use a dental pick to chip it off. Now back to the front side of the reg. Got the main piston. Go ahead and replace this O-ring. These are polyurethane seals. They get worn out over time and start to disintegrate. So, from the factory, they're made for CO2 compatibility, which is why Palmers uses polyurethane seals. The other reason this reg was designed for CO2 use was so that you don't blow your hoses off if the reg starts to overpressurize, which was a common issue with the earlier regulators that Wargames made. So this piston actually has a overpressure relief valve built into it. With the pressure coming in from this side, there's a hole here that goes down into the center of the piston, and then this has a bleed hole here. And there's a seal with a flat seal, a disc, a small spring, and a lock screw. Now, if the pressure rises too much from, say, you know, CO2 heating up over the day, this is supposed to allow the CO2 to vent through the piston and vent out the front to relieve the pressure, so it doesn't blow your hoses on the front block. So this is a 112 O-ring. That's what you're going to use to replace it. If you're not using CO2, you can use standard Buna. And then these use oil only, not grease, for reassembly. Now, there is another variant of this regulator. This is a full-size rock, and then between the full-size and the micro, there was another one called the Mini, which still uses the same rear-style cap. It has that same squared off body and the same slotted cap on the front. However, this one does not have the long CO2 compatible piston. It just uses a short piston like this. You can see the evolution from this design to the newer design. So if you have one of those, the rebuild is exactly the same. So piston goes in with the small side first. Then comes your mainspring, disc, and then the cap. With the cap, you don't have to tighten it down super tight. Once the tension of the adjustment screw hits that disc, it'll lock it in place and keep it from moving. And then you have your adjustment screw that goes in last here. I like to leave them out a ways when I install them on a marker so that the regulator is essentially at 0, so there's no pressure coming out, and then you adjust from there. Wipe off any excess oil or grease, and then if your sealant's dry by now, you can wipe that off. And then if there's any hardened around the edge, you can take a dental pick like this and just chip it away. It's not going to hurt it. Makes everything look a little bit nice and clean. And there you have it, a rebuilt full-size Palmers Rock Regulator, ready to go. Thank you very much. Have a good day.